Thank you. Okay, we'll now turn to Richard.
Well, thank you very much for the Center for Hemispheric Policy for this invitation. And I think that I'm the only one in the table that is currently living in Venezuela. So I also appreciate the opportunity to get some shampoo and some other stuff.
We thought we were lucky that you were able to get a plane ticket.
Yeah, I'm very happy with my hotel room and getting all the stuff in there. I'm going to talk a little bit about, and I'm going to take advantage of Francisco, because they mentioned some of the issues that it's happening in Venezuela. But I just want to emphasize the magnitude of the problem in terms of what the consumer and the Venezuelan are experiencing right now. And the fact that in the last 2 years we have been Venezuela is experiencing the problems of a weak economy, a less productive economy, and finally an economy with high inflation and negative growth in 2014.
So what's the inflation rate now?
It's almost 64% by
sorry,
November.
50 or 60?
64.
54.
64. Yeah. Official one, yeah, that's the only one that I have. And but yeah, as Francisco mentioned, there are some clear reasons why it probably is higher, because there is and one basic fact is that there is a lot of scarcity, and well, you cannot price items that you cannot find. So typically in situations in which there is a high level of scarcity, you are underestimating actual inflation. But in food, for example, inflation is almost 93%. And the thing is that this is it's accelerating, and it has been high for a long time. And that's taking a token in the welfare of the people, and it leads to the very difficult choices for the people. But in terms of growth, I have some graph for you in the material. Well, you can see that the decline in economic growth in 2014 began when the oil price was high, was around almost $100 per barrel, and the decline in two key sectors as construction and manufacturing began even earlier. And that's why, because and the reason is very simple, because there are several restrictions in the functioning of the economy. And you have, for example, in construction, you cannot find cement or steel bars, and that's then you cannot build things, even though the government is not building that much in terms of the housing projects that they were doing during 2012 and 13. And when we see that problem, that points out that we have a crisis that is related to the public policies and the policy orientation of the government, and it reflects in a very poor economic performance. And now we have an oil problem, which is the one that Francisco is describing, and beyond any calculation, it's quite simple. Now we have a price of oil that is less than half than the one that we have in the 3 years before 2015. And even though we don't know about what could happen with the price of oil, well, the fact is that we are facing at 2015 with a possibility that the average price of oil could be in a new low and it is creating a lot of uncertainty. So you have these two factors that at the end suggest that the government should be taking some actions, that the government should be making some adjustments, and in practical terms, well, there are going to be some adjustments. For example, in the last 2 years, imports has been going down, but well, that's because total exports are decreasing, And if we are going to have a significant decrease in external revenues, well, we are going to, the government will need to adjust how it's allocating the dollars. And that process could be, well, in plan, or it could be, just to get by and see what's going on when you don't have enough resources to meet your needs. And I think that is quite important because it leads to the second thing that I would like to talk about. That is the kind of actions that the government is taking. And I certainly agree with Francisco Rodríguez about the big problem that is that the government has messed up with the price system in Venezuela. Francisco was emphasizing the key role of the exchange rate, and but I would like to extend that commentary to everything that is happening in the price system in Venezuela, in which basically there is no price system, with direct controls of the government in a number of areas of the economy, including the exchange rate, but also in any number of goods and services. Then you have an economy in which there is no signal about what is efficient to produce or what is worthy to produce. And you have an economy in which you are not creating value, but you are, looking for arbitrage opportunities. And that's very difficult, because if you're gonna build a wall, then you have to pay somebody to make a line to get the cement that you need to build the wall. But that person is gonna get more money for doing the line than for building the wall. And then, so you don't have, you have a lot of people who wants to make lines, but you don't have people who wants to build a wall. And that's, you cannot really have a functioning economy in that way. And that problem repeats at every level and in every single area of the Venezuelan economy. And that's very, very difficult. And it's a problem that leads to a huge amount of inefficiency within the government. And that problem, I think it's related to two different dimensions of the price system. One, you have to correct the relative prices, and you have to correct the exchange rate, and you have to change the price of a number of products. But then you also need to have a way you need to allow to bring back the price system. And I mean, you need to go beyond the process of adjusting prices. You need to take a step further, and then create, to allow the market and the price system to allocate resources within the economy and to provide the right signals about where to put the money and where to invest. And at this moment, when you see what Maduro's government announced a couple of weeks ago, then you see that the government is just beginning to realize that they have to devaluate. They're not talking about any other of the mechanisms that are in place in Venezuela right now that are producing these huge distortions in the economy. Basically, well, what he said is that they are going to begin considering the increase in the gasoline price, a change in the exchange rate regime, which is still very complex with three systems of allocating dollars. Probably it means that it's going to lead to a higher average exchange rate, but then you're not doing anything else with the other mechanisms that you have in place in the economy, and not even correcting the prices on the production side and of the economy. And I think that that's something that is quite important at this moment, because that means that the adjustment is just too little. It's just moving too slow to the pace of things that are happening in Venezuela and at the rate that things are accelerating right now. And I would say that that it's important to understand what could be happening in the government that makes it so difficult for them to take these decisions. And it seems that there is a clear short-term orientation, and the government is so worried about political consequences that it is afraid of doing something that could have a large political impact related to a single measure. Then it seems to have a problem of having a clear idea or a basic guiding principle of what should be the economic policy, and of course there are any number of combinations of what you can do to try to correct the problems. But at the end, if you want to adjust the economy to the new situation, and if you want to correct the imbalances that you were experiencing, at the end you need to have as a guiding principle that you have to allow the price system to work, and that includes not only allowing the correction in prices, but also pointing to to eliminate some of the most clearly this mechanism that produce distortions in the Venezuelan economy. And that is not happening. It's happening very, very slow, and at the end it seems like the government is facing like this identity crisis in which they, on the one hand, are discussing some macroeconomic issues as the exchange rate regime, but at the same time they have these actions at the micro level, like that in which they insist on putting in place direct regulation over the industry and the firms, as you know, what has happened with Farmatodo and other establishments during the last week, and the idea that inspections and more control could be a way to try to deal with this situation. And these are like two different words. One in which they are discussing the macroeconomic issues at not very effectively and very slowly, and other word in which you have this things happening at the stores, and the president himself saying that he's going to put some people in jail, and that's very inconsistent in practical terms. And the third point that I would like to make is that at the end, the government seems to be very, very afraid of the consequence of making a change in economic policy, or even taking some steps to try to correct the most basic imbalances. And the most popular explanation is that they are afraid of the political cost of these events. But as you can see in some of the numbers that I have here, at the end, you didn't correct the problems that you have in the last year and a half, but you have, Francisco Monaldi mentioned, a significant decrease in popularity and in the feeling about where is the country going. And if you compare this with some other elections in the last few years, you can see the very different point in which the government is now in terms of political support and economic conditions. And I have here some of the economic data and some of the results of that analysis for a year before the 2010 parliamentary elections. And in 2009, inflation was 25%, scarcity was 13%, the growth rate was 3%, and the approval of Chavez was about 46%, close to the positive evaluation, close to its negative evaluation. A year just before the election, the approval of Chavez improved to 51%, and the economic condition didn't change that much. In that election, there was like an even result. The government got 48% of the vote, and the opposition have like something similar, and 3% in other parties. When you see the situation a year before the presidential election of 2012, the approval of Chavez was 51%. By the time of the election, it was 56%. when you see the economic results, well, you have an inflation that went from 28% in 2011 to 20% in 2012. The scarcity was at the same level, about 14%, but you have an increase in the growth rate of the economy from 4.2% to 5-6%, and the government won with 55% of the vote. When we see the results now, actually this is outdated, but it's inflation is 63%, scarcity is well above 30%. We have a decline in economic growth, and the evaluation of Maduro is less than 22%. So the government has never been in a worse position before an election, and there is no signs that the economy is going to help them. I mean, unless there is something extraordinary happening in terms of the external conditions, well, we can just expect that the economic situation is going to be worse during this year, and that would mean that the National Assembly election is going to be a really important turning point in political terms. But that's something that our friends, the political science, are going to talk in a while.
But let me ask, thank you very much. Let me ask you just one quick question. Both Francisco Rodríguez and, well, I guess all of you, and to a certain extent, are talking about, what the benefits of going toward a restoration of a real price system would be. But if we make a different assumption that this regime is really interested in maintaining its political control, why should they go to a price system? If anything, if things get worse, they have political excuses for tightening up, cracking down, etc. Maybe we've all been talking so far about Venezuela. You say it's not a normal country, but I think there's an argument to be made that it's less normal than all of you think. And so I'd be curious, because I know you do politics too, but since we've been hearing about prices and we've been hearing a lot about elections, maybe there aren't going to be elections, but we do have a panel coming on politics, but because this is the economic panel, why is no one considering, I think, the possibility that the basic reason that even though it makes rational sense to all of us, why would they want a price system if they lose control and they won't be able to pay off all the different, co-opted groups as well?
Well, I think that the basic argument is that they have already tried that during the half year, during the last 18 months, and the results are there. It's not just that the economy is worsening and that could lead to some kind of more political control, but in fact they are losing support at a very rapidly. And at the end, if you don't have political support and you have an event in which you need the political support to try to accomplish something, that is going to be a problem. And my personal feeling is that that kind of event is less related to social unrest and more related to the elections. At the end, it would be something really, really extraordinary that the government managed to, just to postpone indefinitely or to eliminate the possibility of having an election. And if you are facing the threat of an election and you don't have political support, then you have a problem of keeping the political control. And that doesn't mean that they are willing to move toward restituting the price system, but what I would like to point out is that the course of action that they are taking it has direct political consequences. That's the point I would like to emphasize.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to leave this floating that I heard data last night from when we had our discussion that the support from Maduro might be not so great, but still there's a core base of support for Chavismo. So maybe you just got to replace Maduro, you see, and move on to another member of this family. But okay, Russ.